You know, there's this invisible war happening all around us, every single second of the day. It's the fight for our digital security. And on the front lines, a new kind of soldier is showing up. It's not human. It's built from code and data. Today, we're going to dive into how artificial intelligence is becoming our new, absolutely essential bodyguard against cyber threats.
Seriously, just stop and think about that. How do you catch a hacker who's designed to be a ghost in the machine? Modern cyberattacks are getting so sophisticated, so stealthy. So how on earth do you fight an enemy you can't even see? That's the huge question that cybersecurity experts are wrestling with right now.
Okay, so to really get why AI is such a game changer here, we first have to understand why our traditional defenses are starting to fail. We are in a full-on digital arms race, and let me tell you, the old ways of doing things are seriously getting outmatched.
And here's what's just mind-boggling: the sheer scale of the problem. Oracle predicts that by 2025, we're going to have 600 times more confidential data stored up in the cloud. Just picture all the sensitive information that's out there today, and now multiply it by 600. That's not just looking for a needle in a bigger haystack. It's like the entire battlefield just got massively bigger, creating this huge, juicy new attack surface for hackers.
For the longest time, we've basically had two main plays in the security playbook. First, there's signature-based detection. This is kind of like having a most wanted list for computer viruses. If it sees a known bad guy, boom, it sounds the alarm. Then you've got anomaly-based detection. This is more like a neighborhood watch. It doesn't necessarily know who the criminals are, but it knows what normal looks like, and it flags anything that seems out of place or suspicious. And both of these methods, right, they fall under the umbrella of something called an intrusion detection system, or IDS for short. And its job is super simple, at least on paper. Just watch everything that's going on, spot any trouble, and let the humans know. It's basically a digital smoke detector.
But here's the massive problem, the real weak spot. What happens when a brand new, never-before-seen attack pops up? One that isn't on any most wanted list and is cleverly designed to look like perfectly normal activity. Well, these are called zero-day attacks, and they are the absolute Achilles heel of these old-school security systems.
And this is where AI finally steps onto the scene, starting with its first big wave, machine learning. See, instead of just giving a computer a rigid list of rules to follow, we can now actually teach it to think like a security guard, to learn, to adapt, and to spot threats all on its own. So how does a machine learn? Well, in this world, it happens in two main ways. You've got supervised learning, which is kind of like giving the AI a textbook filled with tons of examples where everything is neatly labeled, "This is an attack," or "This is normal." Then there's unsupervised learning. This is more like throwing it in the deep end, learning on the job. You just give it a giant pile of data, and it has to find the hidden patterns all by itself. So let's walk through that textbook approach. First, you train the model. That means you feed it thousands, even millions, of data points that are already labeled. Then, from all that data, it starts to build what's called a classifier. It basically learns the telltale signs of what an attack looks like versus what's normal. And finally, once it's all trained up, it's ready to look at brand new, live data and make a call. Is this safe, or is this an attack?
But, machine learning was really just the beginning. The next big evolution? That's deep learning. And if machine learning is your trusty, reliable security guard, think of deep learning as the elite, super smart specialist they call in for the really complex cases.
And the reason it's so incredibly powerful is captured perfectly right here. Deep learning models are built using something called artificial neural networks, which, and this is the really cool part, are directly inspired by the actual structure of the human brain. We're not just writing lines of code anymore. We're trying to build a system that can learn in a much more intuitive, powerful way. So what does that really give us? Well, the huge advantage here is that deep learning figures out what's important all by itself. It's a process called automatic feature learning. Plus, it just eats up massive data sets. The more data you feed it, the smarter it gets. And because of its layered, complex structure, it can grasp these incredibly subtle patterns, a lot like how our own brains work.
Okay, so that all sounds amazing in theory, right? But how well does it actually perform? Well, this brings us to the main event, the AI accuracy showdown. It's machine learning versus deep learning. Let's see who comes out on top as the better digital defender.
Researchers put a whole bunch of these AI models to the test. And honestly, the results are just staggering. I mean, look at this. The top machine learning models are incredible. You've got K-nearest neighbor hitting 99.89% accuracy. And random forest is right there with it.
But then, look over at the deep learning models. A convolutional neural network, a CNN, which is fantastic at finding complex patterns, managed to score even higher.
Let's just put the two champions head-to-head to really see it. On the left, machine learning's best performer, KNN. On the right, deep learning's champion, the CNN. Now they are both ridiculously good, but you can see that little edge deep learning has. And you might think, oh, it's just a tiny fraction of a percent, but when you're talking about a network that sees millions of events every single day, that tiny fraction can mean thousands of missed attacks. So yeah, every single decimal point counts.
Let's just let that number sink in for a second. 99.95% accuracy. What does that even mean in the real world? It means for every 2,000 potential threats the system analyzes, it makes a mistake on only one. That is the staggering power of building a security system that actually thinks a little bit like a brain.
But hey, why pick just one champion? The really smart play might actually be to build a dream team. It's something called an ensemble method, where you combine the different strengths of multiple AI models to create a defense that's way tougher than any single one could be on its own.
Now, as incredible as that 99.95% is, it's not perfect, right? It's not 100%. The game is far from over. For every new defense we build, you can bet the attackers are already working on a new offense. And researchers have already laid out the next big challenges we need to solve.
So what's on the to-do list? Well, first, getting these AIs to handle multiple attacks happening at the exact same time. Then there's the challenge of filtering out all the noise, the irrelevant data, so the models don't get confused. They also have to find that perfect sweet spot between being super accurate and being super fast. And maybe the biggest goal of all, we need to move beyond just detecting bad guys to building systems that can actively prevent them from ever getting in.
And all of this leaves us with one last, kind of chilling thought. We've just seen how unbelievably powerful AI can be as a defender. But remember what we said, this is an arms race. So the real question we have to ask ourselves is, what happens when the attackers get their hands on this level of AI too? What will that fight look like?